powerlessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a three-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God damn America. That's in the Bible for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme.
Okay, hello, welcome to Pod Damn America, the podcast by me and Anders. Hi, I'm Jake Flores. That's Anders J. Lee.
Here.
And this is the first episode we'll have on our public feed since Big Man Zohran took down the establishment in New York City. So if you are not a Patreon listener, this is the first we will be discussing of it. We talked a little bit behind the paywall. But obviously, it's our job to analyze, and to celebrate and do all these things. So strap in. It's a Big Man Zohran episode. I don't know why I keep calling it Big Man Zohran. It's the thing I'm trying to get off the ground. Hasn't really.
He's about my height. He's a medium height. I'm honestly curious if he was a 5'11" guy. We're like a select elite crew of not too tall, not too short.
He's not a physically big man. He's got big ideas, and he's a big presence in the world. Which
absolutely.
Is really this thing, honestly, from the beginning of the election, it's like New York City mayor. It's kind of national news, and it's one of those things where sometimes when it's happening, you're like, why is this national news? I mean, I guess New York is the main city, right? But it's a local election. But no, this is straight up because he won, especially if he hadn't won. If Cuomo had won, it'd be like, this is a B story, right? It's out with we wouldn't be thinking about it after the primary's over or whatever. But this is huge, and I keep calling him Big Man Zohran because there's this nerdcore rapper guy who made a song that's a really bad earworm, it gets stuck in your head real hard, about Blastoise, the Pokemon. And it goes, big man Blastoise, big man Blastoise. It just repeats like that. And he's gone really viral and is I think I might go see him. He's playing a live show here at some point.
Oh, nice.
But it just, when Zohran started winning and I was pumping my fist at home and going, oh my God, he's going to win, it switched to my head to big man Zohran, big man Zohran. So that's
Is that not Blastoid? I always thought it was Blastoid.
No, it's Blastoise because all of Pokemon names are plays on real animals. So Squirtle is a squirting turtle. Wartortle is, I don't know exactly what the justification there is. It's a turtle.
That's the medium height one. That's the 5'11" Pokemon incarnate of evolution.
Yeah, actually, that is kind of weird. He's kind of Zoran's a Wartortle. Blastoise is a tortoise. Toise.
Okay.
The suffix.
Blastoise. Oh, yeah. Wow. Oh, that was right in front of me the whole time. I'm Googling it, and then Bill de Blasio is coming up.
He looks a lot like Blastoise because there is a video game where you can get outfits for all the Pokemon. It's fucking dumb. Me and Alex played it years ago for the Twitch stream that we don't do anymore. Maybe we'll bring it back. But you can get an outfit for Blastoise, and he looks like he looks like an uncle. He just looks like a middle-aged dude when you put a shirt on a Blastoise. He looks kind of like Cedric the Entertainer. There's a lot of black comics that were this is your old fucking uncle at the bar. That's Unk, at the barbecue.
Uh-huh.
But he straight up, when that video game came out, the Blastoise pink Hawaiian shirt you could get him to wear with his little cool summertime cabana hat or whatever is the same outfit that Bill de Blasio was wearing when he went viral for some reason. He was wearing,
the one with the sunglasses?
Yeah, he was wearing a fucking summer pink shirt. He looked like a damn Blastoise. And he's de Blasio, so I guess he kind of makes sense.
Blastoisio.
The key, if you want to win the race to be New York City mayor, you have to be somewhat Squirtle to Blastoise coded. You have to do one of the evolutions. We haven't had a Squirtle mayor yet in New York.
Bloomberg. I would say Bloomberg was a Squirrel mayor for sure.
A little, yeah. And he's like, Bloomberg, but he's not. Squirtles are cool, though. Squirtle is, they have they had a squad. You know, there was a whole gang of them.
Squirtle Squad.
Sunglasses and stuff, and they were ninjas. And he seems more of like a Mr. Mime to me, like a damn clown is what I'm saying. Or
De Blasio, I heard something disturbing about him last night. Actually, he's looking very favorably now after the past 4 years, and I've been bringing up his universal pre-K program, which I thought was a made-up thing. I'm not going to lie. When he was the mayor and people would talk about, oh, de Blasio got universal pre-K, I was like, yeah, but no, we didn't. That's not real. But that's because I don't have kids and I don't interact with kids very often in New York City. So I didn't realize like this affected maybe millions of people. And was a great thing.
Squirtles. He's the father that stepped up. He's a Blastoise, and he took care of the Squirtles when he was mayor.
Right. And he fought Cuomo to get that. People said it couldn't be done. And that was when taxes were a lot higher on rich people. It was before the Trump tax cuts. So Zohran's plans, I think, are absolutely doable. Even if Hochul is saying now she doesn't want to take them on. But I heard something really bad about de Blasio that I hadn't really considered. You know, his wife was out as a lesbian, right? Before they got together.
Before they got together. Okay. I think I vaguely remember this. Yeah, as a guy who dates women who are sometimes lesbians and hate me, I think I remember being like, oh, I have the same thing going on as de Blasio, and I don't know what that means.
Yeah, sometimes it's fine if they decide, I want to try this man. It can be very nice. Big man, try the big man. But apparently, according to one person I talked to who pieced this together through de Blasio's public statements on the matter, this is not fact. It should not be reported as such, but it is some, I think, compelling hearsay and speculation about their relationship because according to de Blasio has admitted she didn't want to date him at first. They worked together under David Dinkins, DSA's last New York City mayor, and he would hit on her, and even though she was gay. And she had an article in some magazine from the 70s that was like, I am a lesbian. I am a black lesbian. Something of that nature.
Now you're just doing the Cuomo speech.
Yeah. I am Bill de Blasio's wife. I'm surprised he didn't shoehorn that in. And his daughter and his son. I'm his whole family, and I am watching him every night when he sleeps. But he hit on her a lot, and then eventually she kind of relented. And I remember her saying, like, well, I just needed Bill. He was the right guy. So she at least publicly was saying it was simpatico, but they divorced recently or separated. So that makes me wonder what actually went on there, because it is very much like, there's movies where that's presented in a charming way. Like a woman is not interested, and then the guy just has to be annoying, and it conditions people, to have this fucked up dynamic that, so it may be an example of that, which is disappointing. But again, I don't know that for a fact. That's
a complicated question, and I think that's got to be like a case by case thing. The way you should look at it, because on the one hand, flirting with people, there's just like so much subtext and like unspoken like cues and stuff that you have to understand if you're going to continue to hit on someone, maybe when it doesn't, maybe when they're kind of not saying when they're saying I'm a lesbian, you know what I mean? Like, because that could be that he was an annoying guy and he fucking, maybe just this is a terrible story. He pushed this person's boundaries to the point that she married him even though she didn't want to. Or, I don't know. You don't know. We don't fucking know these people.
Yeah.
Sexuality is a spectrum. I've dated so many women that like literally I'm the only guy they've dated. So I'm here to tell you, living proof, unless I also just annoyed those women into dating me. But at least one of them. Well,
they often initiate. I've experienced that. But in his telling of it, that's not what happened. Shirlane did not come onto him. He came onto her and came onto her and came onto her and came onto her. And eventually she was like, fine.
I would
But
love to be a fly on the wall in the room where Bill de Blasio is hitting on a lesbian, getting like playfully rebuffed, and he's like, I'll get you one of these days. You think you don't like it, but wait till you see me in my cool summer wear. And he comes up with that fucking straw hat on, his sunglasses. Yeah. Finally, she's just like, you know what? All right, we'll give this guy a chance, but we're going to the cubby hole, and you're going to pretend to be a lesbian with me.
The gay conversion therapy right there. That's the only way it would be successful, is just show lesbians that picture of Bill de Blasio.
He kind of does have like a vibe. I don't know. He's a confusing person. Anyways, he's not.
Yeah. He's not mayor, and he's having a good week. But who's not having a good week? His old nemesis. I made that joke about him watching Bill de Blas when he sleeps, of course, because they went at it when Cuomo was governor, Blasio was mayor. Cuomo basically treated him like a punching bag, and he hated him ever since they got universal pre-K. Another thing I found out, and this is, again, don't sue me, Cuomo, because this is allegedly, I have it on good information, and I cannot reveal my source. I'm a journalist now. Sometimes people call us journalists, and I'm like, yeah, I guess, sure, but this is don't come asking how I got this information if you're a member of the press. But I have it on good authority that the nipple rings are real.
A smoking man in an alley told you this, right? You can't see his face, just the cigarette lighting and shit.
Yeah, something of that nature. I mean, if you look at those pictures, like they're online, you can see them. There's if it's not nipple rings, it's a concerning amount of areola or hair or something. It's probably better that it is nipple rings. And if it's not, he should get that checked out.
When Zohran did a what do you call it, like a spot or whatever with a little promo thing with Sarah Squirm, our friend of the show, who's been on the show and is now mega famous on SNL, she brought up the nipple rings. They're real. I'm a believer. Honestly, hearing all this stuff about him having a lesbian wife, it all tracks to me. I think that he's got.
Well, that's de Blasio.
Side. Oh, wait. Oh, right. Okay, sorry. We're talking.
They're both. Are you just mixing them up because they're Italian?
I mean, you guys all look the same to me. You're not.
Because that did actually happen. There was a great New Yorker sort of shouts and murmurs about our friends at Dream. Don't rank evil Andrew for mayor, where they were trying to canvass people. Don't rank Andrew Cuomo, and they were talking to this one woman who was like, "No, I like him. I like Andrew Cuomo. Yeah, I'm a big fan." And then they're like, crap. Okay, well, we'll move on to the next person. And then she tells the reporter, oh, wait, no, I was thinking of Bill de Blasio.
Yeah, okay, so it's a Bill Paxton, Bill Pullman situation. No, I totally just mixed up that story while you were telling it because I was thinking about Bill de Blasio's sex life too much for some reason.
Yeah, not a good place for the mind to go.
Thinking about that. But Andrew Cuomo with nipple rings is terrifying. That's like you don't want to encounter that person in a bar somewhere. I don't want to know where he hangs out on the weekends. I don't want to know what that's all about because he's not a fun person.
No,
sexually, he's like got a lot of allegations and problems, and has been allegations. He's fucking proven to be like a not good person. So
yes,
take them off.
He's sexually harassed women, according to Joe Biden's Department of Justice. So he can try and talk about Tish James all he wants, but Biden said he did it, or his DOJ. And also his ex-wife, I don't know if she said this directly, but a friend of hers, and this has been reported, I'm not making this up, his ex-wife, who was a Kennedy, said that he was abusive in their marriage and that she would like sleep in the bathroom. But in any case, well, he should, now that he's done, hopefully, I mean, as we'll get to, there is, it might not be that bad if he stuck around, and because he is going to have a ballot line in November. He may not run an active campaign, but it would be funny is if in his last press conference as a political figure, if he ended it by saying, "By the way, they're real and they're spectacular."
Yeah. Just so we all know. And then he rides off into the mountains on a motorcycle. We never see him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that happening. There's somewhat of a reckoning happening. I don't really know what's going to happen with the Epstein files and everything, but it seems like there's a rustling that maybe something will get leaked soon, because Alan Dershowitz just decided to come out and make a video about the age of consent, where he goes into great detail about like how it's different in certain states, and like in Alabama it's 15. If it's 15, then in another state, why it's the same thing. And it's the guiltiest thing of all time. He made it with a lot of visual aids and stuff. He used the phrase consensual wonderful sex with an 18-year-old. I don't know what the fuck is going on, but it kind of seems like that's going to drop soon, and then all of our faves are going to be in it. And
what if it's like the cultural norm is that if you bother a lesbian 11 times and then she agrees to date you, then it's okay?
that's the law in Alabama, it turns out, and we should be living by it. But yeah, let's talk about Zohran Mania, just the general reactions and stuff. If you don't, why were we going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, Dershowitz, this is a long-standing interest of his, is age of consent laws. This is like a large part of his legal career is around challenging them, and he's written a lot of legal opinions on this very issue. So yeah, it's good that we're not going to have a guy like him as the mayor. Andrew Cuomo got just obliterated, which was, I wasn't expecting. I think the fact that it's not just that he won, right? Because I thought, that was a possibility from the beginning. I thought it was even more clear that it was going to happen the final week of the campaign. The polling did not pick up people who had just registered for the first time. It did not account for old people who didn't want to go out in 100-degree weather to vote for this sex pervert. But the margin of, to be clear, what was overall number one votes, because this was a ranked choice election. It didn't even go to a runoff because it's clear he's going to win. He's just going to beat Cuomo outright, which very few people were expecting. I thought it was going to go until I thought that we were going to have to record this podcast not knowing the results of the election, but we knew on Tuesday night, which was nuts. And I think that
the first round, which means ranked choice voting, didn't even factor in. It's just as if it was a regular election.
Right. Which, and Cuomo, I'm sure would have loved to blame it on ranked choice voting. There's some delicious stuff coming out about his campaign this week. There's already 3 postmortems. The best one came out today so far from Edward Isaac Dover at CNN, who basically posits that the campaign had Melissa DeRosa running it, but not officially. She wasn't getting paid, and she would, to this day, denies that she was working for the campaign, which is just kind of shows the pattern of like lying about weird stuff, which is also true of Eric Adams, but she's just like insistent, no, I was not running the campaign. When everyone interviewed is like, yeah, she called all the shots. She made the major decisions. When people second guessed her decisions or Cuomo's decisions, she referred to him as the Tom Brady of New York politics, which is that feels to me like a dated reference. But the funniest part was on the pronunciation issue, because that came up in the debate. The first debate, he could not say it correctly. Zohran didn't correct him. And then in the second debate, it became a viral moment. He was like, learn how to say my name. It's Mamdani. Mm-hmm. And as Dover writes, his aides tried over and over to get Cuomo to say Mamdani's name correctly. Was it a mental block or passive-aggressive disrespect that made it come out Mandani or Mandamni every time?
Mandamni, Obama, soda. Have you ever seen the fucking the episode of The Simpsons when like they join the witness protection program and the FBI agents are like trying to explain to Homer, your name is Homer Thompson. Like, say it with me, Thompson, and he just like can't do it.
The tobacco episode?
No, this is
Okay.
I think this is Cape Fear, the one where
with Sideshow Bob. That's a good one. Yeah.
The movie Cape Fear, basically.
Yeah.
Mr. Thompson, and he's like, I think he's talking to you because he was like, that's very much what the vibe here seems to be. I was read about this, and it like reading all the different ways in which Andrew Cuomo can't say Mamdani. Like reading them fucked up my brain, and for like an hour I couldn't say it either because all of the bad pronunciations were floating in my head, and I was like, "Is it Mamdani with an M? Like, is it? Like which one is it?" And I had to like uncuomo my brain to get back.
Yeah, it's weird because I've been following him for a while, not as closely as the past few months, but I never had a problem with the name, and then it was just not to brag or anything. This is one of like 5 things I'm good at is pronouncing names correctly, or I like to think so. But so many people are, it's starting to fuck with me too. So many people spell it Zohran. Even New York Magazine, there was a profile in New York that spelled it Zorhan several times, and it's like, how does this keep happening? It's weird. It's like, to me, it's like confusing Helen Keller and Anne Frank. Like Bill Paxton and Bill Pullman, I can see, but there's like all these people out there who, for some reason, have this other strange conflation.
I used to do the Helen Keller and Frank thing too. I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's like a what do you call it? Mandela effect. I almost said Mamdani effect. Mandela.
Well, that's maybe it'll be the new thing will be called the Mamdani effect, named after how you're not supposed to pronounce his name.
I got Cuomo in my brain now. Now I'm saying Mamdani because it's funny and it reminds me of when Trump said Obama. Soda.
Or when Biden called himself an Biden-Bama Democrat when he was running for president the first time, or in 2020.
But wait, what the fuck were we just talking about? I just lost my train of thought.
Well, Cuomo, in his concession speech, said it Mamdani. So even that night, he couldn't get it right. But he's hopefully out of. Well, he'll be out of the picture ultimately. The general election campaign is already shaping up. People are saying in the national media, well, this is going to be a competitive race. And that's, to be fair, I was kind of thinking this a few weeks ago, and even a little bit after Tuesday. But now it seems to be consensus that Zohran will be the mayor. Don't want to.
Zohran. I remember what I was going to say, which is that this is probably part of this is like this is the first Zohran a lot of people have probably been aware of.
Yeah.
I met a Zohran for the first time a couple years ago when I was bartending in Manhattan. I had a regular named Zohran, and it was the first time when he told me his name, I was like annoying about it. I was like, what are you a dragon? Why are you named that? Like, that's crazy. But he's just an Eastern European guy. It is like a common name in different parts of the world. And that was the only reason Zohran didn't entirely throw me. But I think that for people doing the typos and stuff, it's just, you've just never come across this name before. Now, but you know what? Now you know it, and you're gonna have to, and you're gonna have to fucking spell it right because my man made history.
Yeah, put some respect on his name. Apparently, there was this was a tweet that went viral a few days ago that out in, I think it was like somewhere way south Brooklyn, there was this couple that thought he was Italian because Mamdani sounded Italian, and they're like, well, what about the first name, Zohran? And the person was like, "Oh, I just he had hippie parents. I figured."
Were they like, were they spelling it Donny like in their head, like Donnie? He's from Jersey or whatever.
I guess so. Yeah. But people are gonna have to learn how to say it. That's what most of the establishment people are willing to do so far is learn how to pronounce his name correctly. Number one. And then number two, there you will see more of this, a lot of really loud and sanctimonious condemnations of stuff Trump and Republicans say about Zohran, but you can tell they still don't know what the fuck to do about embracing him. Are they going to endorse him? The House Minority Leader, who happens to be my congressman, Hakeem Jeffries, would not commit to endorsing him today. He's like, well, they keep, this is a refrain, is they keep saying they want to sit down with him first. I guess smell him, like get a vibe, sit across the table from, see how tall he is, maybe, and then you'll endorse. Like it's. I mean, it just goes to show the vote blue, no matter who line is not. They don't believe that their own bullshit there.
Yeah, it doesn't go both ways. So therefore, it's not no matter who. That is a thing that they use to get you to only vote for their shitty candidates or whatever.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff right now where I'm like, I mean, if you're a fucking seasoned, aggrieved internet leftist like us, then this stuff is probably obvious and we're like retreading territory here. But who knows who the fuck is thinking about this for the first time? We're kind of old now. You know, there's new people who weren't even really paying attention to politics back in 2016. There's stuff. This is a crucial moment to pay attention to if you want to like see the veneer and the pretense of the Democratic Party and it's what it actually is, which is like a controlled opposition come apart. And like one of those things is just like one of the like big obvious things right now hanging in the air to me is imagine Cuomo had won, right? What do you think the news would be like, right? Probably nothing. Probably just like a regular story of a fucking election ending. Look at Fox News and like if you're somebody who's like a liberal and you're thinking about this and you want to beat the Republicans and the conservatives and the fucking Nazis, the evil right wing, look how hard they're freaking out. They're losing their fucking minds, calling him Hitler, calling him a 9/11 Osama bin Laden, like trying to deport him, invoking all these crazy things, trying to stop this and screaming bloody murder. Would they have done that if Cuomo had won? That should tell you something about the difference between establishment Democrats and this like insurgency thing that the DSA has been able to successfully pull off here. He's not the same thing, and therefore when they push their establishment Democrats on us, like you gotta understand it's an entirely different animal. It's like a hand-picked. It's like the Republicans have handpicked a Democrat, like their own opposition to either beat or have to work with, and this is a sign of like truly upsetting the apple cart and like truly like scaring and threatening the establishment, which is people who are actively against our interests. And so what I mean, the fucking right wing cope has been like hilarious. That kind of scary to the extent that it's just like openly racist and it's all this invocation of like like he's radical Islam just for being Muslim is like not even really doing a lot of the things they're alluding to. Obviously the weaponization of anti-Semitism has been like a huge fucking annoying thing to deal with all this, but like this question of like what the Democrats are going to do with this is really interesting because I think that this is where they really, really get quiet and they measure and try to figure out like how serious of a presence like he's definitely going to be. If there's still a way to put him back in the fucking box, like if there's like an India Walton like write-in campaign they could rat fuck him with, then they won't cede an inch, right? But if they start to realize like, oh, we're going to have to play ball with this person, they're going to be like a presence, like a actual part of politics that we can't just like fucking dominate, then you start to see a lot of like recuperation and absorption, and like they're basically, I think they're going to start to take credit for him as if he is them and stuff like that. That's been the God Save America thing, is like, once they see a democratic socialist win, they start to do all this weird language of like, well, yeah, how this is, what they did in the campaign is great and we can use that and all this stuff, conveniently pushing the policy that made this whole thing popular aside. But I think that you're going to see them waffle between still trying to see if they can crush him before the actual election and accepting reality, and then just trying to take credit as if they like that was us. This is a win for the Democratic Party, right?
Right. The abundance people are already trying to claim him because he does want to build more housing. But he wants it to be built by unions and be actually affordable, which they, obviously have problems with. And one of the counters to that is the idea that, union labor is going to be so much more expensive, and that slows public projects down. He went on Derek Thompson's podcast and had a pretty effective rebuttal to that, which is that, the real reason these projects take a while is because of all the contractors and the for-profit entities. Like Comcast is like part of our infrastructure now, and we have to make sure that they're getting a piece. And if we don't do that, then that actually saves a lot of money. And if you look at Western European countries, they have very strong public sector unions, and without the same problems we have with stagnation. But I think the margin he won by is super important here, because that's the thing they don't know how to deal with. There's already, and I knew this would happen. There's already people being like, oh, well, what works in New York City is not going to work in the rest of the country. But as I tweeted about this a little the other day, there are, I live in Bed-Stuy. It's near Bushwick. That gets assigned as like the weirdo. I mean, there is a commie corridor in New York City. That's what came through on Tuesday. But we're not the
too, and it's no good. Don't go. They'll try to bark you in. They say they have George Carlin, and he's dead. Like they have Chris Rock. They don't have him.
Comedy Corridor. It's the new Old Man Hustle. Actually, the guy who owns that is starting a club called Comedy Corridor. No, but there is this mass of people in New York City who are willing to vote for these politics if it's presented to them. But that's not unique to New York, as it were. I nailed that tongue twister, but somehow messed up Comedy Corridor. Unique New York. Yeah, there's every city in America has hipster neighborhoods. It has neighborhoods where people have socialist politics or beyond. And most people in America now live in cities. So this politics isn't just, in New York. People want it all over the country, and they want it in rural areas too with a lot of this stuff.
They also only say that when they're trying to argue against a socialist. They never go like, oh, well, some stupid fucking middle of the road Democrat won in, Wisconsin or something. Well, that's not going to work in California because that's California, not Wisconsin, or that's not going to work in a city, right? So, then it doesn't get applied the same way. Then it's no, you still have to listen to us. They still try to run their bullshit fucking people for mayor of New York City. So obviously they don't care about this difference. It's being cynically employed.
Yeah. But this election is also unique because there's really no alternative now, right? Are you going to get behind Cuomo, who just lost the primary and is like widely known to be a sex pest? Are you going to get behind Eric Adams, the incumbent, who is also not the Democratic nominee and is just blatantly corrupt? I think there's a chance. Or Jim Walden, he was running as an independent. He's just some lawyer, some like centrist lawyer who worked for Obama. I think Ackman maybe gives him a few mil. But that doesn't do it. That doesn't always seal the deal.
Slee was finally going to pull it off this time. The Guardian guy with the fucking beret. I mean, there's like been weird arguments about maybe them just like pulling, Hillary Clinton out of a box and like doing some weird insurgency thing. It's probably not going to happen. It's one of the funny things that like in all of the Islamophobia and xenophobia that's kind of coming out of people with regards to Zohran. Some weird crank that apparently he's a big deal in like Australia. They all hate him or whatever. It's got Drew Pavlu or whatever.
Oh yeah,
he was kind of invoking like this xenophobic, anti like Arab thing of like he's New York City's mayor is going to be in the pocket of a foreign country because he's from Uganda. So I guess he's saying he's going to be like whatever, or like trying to make it about Palestine and fucking Israel and stuff like that. But it's just such a funny thing to say while the current mayor of New York City, Eric Adams, was like found guilty of taking bribes from Turkey.
Yeah,
like that. Somehow that doesn't get anyone's hackles up on the right wing in terms of being owned by another country. Also, they never seem to mind Israel and all the dealings that we do with them, but
right. Yeah, and that the Israel thing, I think, is the most befuddling or just vexing thing for the establishment is because they're so used to, you said something bad about Israel, you're done. And Mamdani didn't shy away from his views on it.
He
And
educated us while running for
right.
office instead of just fucking cowering and trying to tell people what they wanted to hear.
Yeah. And it worked. Or at least it didn't matter, to the extent it was negative. And I think it was positive ultimately. But they don't know how to handle that. And you have people like Eric Swalwell, who's this doofus congressman from California, who straight up said on the news yesterday, he was asked about Zohran, and he said, well, I don't, he doesn't speak for me. I have problems with some things he said about the Jewish people, which is just insane that you would say that on air and not even have like a more precise sort of plan about how you're gonna address that question. And there's gonna be consequences. I think there's already been consequences for Kirsten Gillibrand. People have been calling into her office, demanding that she resign and apologize. And her comms dude was like, "Oh, she didn't really mean to say that." She went on Brian Lehrer this week and said essentially that she needs Zohran to clarify his views on the intifada, or as she called it, she used the words global jihad, which is not something he's ever said on the campaign, or I don't think in any public statement. There's clearly some racism going on there, because just this level of Muslim politics has not existed in the United States. They don't know how to interface with it. There's Ilhan Omar, who they were able to dogpile a few years ago. But now there's a lot more popular sentiment around particularly the issue of Palestine, and they just are scared. They don't know how to come back against it.
They've gotten away with using the word intifada, just vaguely alluding to the idea that means like a jihad, which it doesn't. But since no one ever is around or has to correct this, and they kind of can just get away with saying a scary Arab-sounding word, they've been able to successfully kind of bash people like Zohran for saying, things about the global intifada. If he's even on record for saying that, that's also another part of this. It's like, did he even say it? But it's the actual answer to this, if you're wondering about it, is that is a perfectly okay thing to say, because it is the resistance against a fucking genocidal occupation is just called the Intifada. There have been a couple of them historically. The first one was nonviolent and was strikes and protests and stuff while people were being actively holocausted by Israel, which has been happening for 75 years. The second one, Hamas did some fucking suicide bombings and stuff like that, but it's like, okay, but this was 50 years into being fucking murdered, for 50 years straight or whatever. But the word it's just a word. It just means like, like resistance or struggle. Like, I'll praise Allah, inshallah, that shit. It's kind of a similar thing here. That's like, it's been a taboo, scary word to scare Americans with, since like the Iraq War and stuff like that. It just means God. It's not like a different God. It's often alluded to as if they're praying to like a different God, and it's like, you politicians over here all claim to be religious too. These are bullshit things. They're fucking bullshit. They're just like propaganda tactics that they've been able to get away with for forever. That just the level of success that Zohran has had, the lane that's open for him here, the very fact of him being in a position where he doesn't have to apologize and can't be dogpiled like you're saying they did to Ilhan Omar, is just shining enough light and scrutinizing the situation when they cynically try to employ these tactics against him, that they don't hold up anymore. You can't actually say that. You can't really weaponize anti-Semitism by accusing him of being anti-Semitic, because now he's going to win and he has power and he can just say, "What do you mean by that?" And he's good on the fucking mic, so he's been able to. But watching like Gillibrand or whatever, and some of these establishment Democrats have these moments where they kind of melt down by the rhetoric that they've been coasting on forever just no longer working, has been kind of interesting. I haven't thought about her in a long time, but she's the subject of my favorite Donald Trump tweet, I think, which is just from 2019 during the primary back then, which is, he said, "A sad day for Democrats. Kirsten Gillibrand has dropped out of the presidential primary. I'm glad they never found out she was the one I was really afraid of. Owen always gets me. He's so funny. He's such a dick because he wasn't afraid of her. She was like, she had no chance in that primary.
Yeah, she had the Sean McElwee vote, and that was about it. Yeah. I was saying that Zohran should sit down with her and just convince her that the Zetro cards we got for canvassing, looks like a Metro card, and you get stickers on it every time you canvass, that he should convince that those are cryptocurrency, and that he can fund her reelection campaign if she kisses the ring. But yeah, I think the anti-Semitism stuff was seen as cynical broadly, including by a lot of Jewish New Yorkers who came to the polls to vote for Zohran. He came in second with Jewish people just in New York. So this idea that just Israel equals Judaism is insulting to the people that Cuomo is trying to appeal to. And according to the postmortem, his staff tried to say that to him. They were like, stop bringing up Israel. Like, you have to, talk about other issues and positions and not just be purely anti-Zohran. And he's just such a nasty guy that he's not used to having to ask people to vote for him so he can do stuff for them, right? He's not used to making that case. He's just, as an incumbent, he would just have to knock down his opponents, which he didn't really get much serious opposition, which, I obviously supported Nixon in 2018, but, she was seen as a fringe candidate. But it's a different ballgame, and he's not up to the moment. He just didn't get it. And one of his supporters was even quoted as saying, he's never really been good at connecting with people. It's what they said. So good riddance. He is. I kind of hope he does run another campaign so we can keep dragging him, because he's a deeply evil man who deserves more humiliation. But we do have more positive things to talk about regarding this campaign. I wanted to get sort of a ground's eye view, if that's a term. Whatever
you just made it into one.
Okay. You've heard of bird's eye view. This is a bird's eye view, but if the bird decided to land on the sidewalk, and actually that would be too small of a view. That wouldn't be very good to have a very short-sighted view. But we have an on we have an on the ground and on the media perspective from some people who are involved in the campaign. I wanted to talk to a range of people. Thought about getting somebody from the official campaign. They obviously they're thinking strategically about what media to do and what not to do. And
huge mistakes by associating with the wrong internet psychopath
right
now and the actual election, please.
Yeah. But we do have a few great guests on the show who are going to inform us about their roles in this big W. We have Wilderness, that's his name. He's an organizer in Queens DSA. And we're also going to be talking to the Hot Girls for Zohran, which you may have seen on social media. Let's go to that conversation.
Hell yeah, Hot Girl Summer.
Okay, we are now joined by a panel of experts, as it were. Wanted to talk with a variety of people who are involved in Tuesday's big victory. We are joined by Wilderness, who is a DSA organizer, actually the person who convinced me to vote to endorse Zohran as an NYC-DSA member. Thank you for coming on, Wilderness.
Howdy.
And then really excited to introduce our other guests, the Hot Girls for Zohran. Not all of them, but I guess the two ringleaders, Cait and Caif. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. And this is, I'm still kind of in shock about what happened less than a week ago. We use the phrase, this is a week that feels like a decade too often on this show, but this is a time where that's a really applicable feeling. But I just kind of wanted to start with everybody's point of entry into this campaign. How did you find out about Zohran? and what inspired you to get involved. And I guess we'll start with Cait and Caif.
Yeah. So I heard about Zohran first, I think, from Caif. So I'll let Caif explain where he heard him, and then I'll.
Yeah, the first time I saw Zohran was I was online and I was looking at some videos, and I saw a video on Instagram, I think it was, of a halal cart, some guy at a halal cart, and it was Zohran's video of, are you paying too much for a halal cart? And he talked about how the process for those halal carts to get licenses is so rough and really unfair to each of those folks, and they're overpaying. And that's why the price of halal is $10 versus $8. And, just kind of all of that being said, I followed him and I decided I was going to vote for him. And I remember bringing him up to Cait at one point. And then I think the turning point was one day, Cait, you want to say?
I had heard about him from Caif, and then I saw a video of him after Mahmoud Khalil was arrested, and he was in Albany yelling at the border czar, demanding his release. And I think that was really, I sent that to Caif, and I was like, we need this guy in office. Like, this is somebody who is out there, like, putting himself on the line for the people that he wants to represent. And so the idea for Hot Girls for Zohran actually just started as an idea to raise money for his campaign, because at that point he hadn't reached his campaign donations goal. I think it was probably end of February, very beginning of March. And I'm a graphic designer, and so I had designed these T-shirts because I remembered Hot Girls for Bernie, and it was very well done. And I just thought that it was it would be successful from a standpoint of I knew a lot of women who would wear them, just personally in my friend group. And so the plan was really to just make these T-shirts and sell them and donate the money. But Caif had the idea to bring it to social media. And so that was where it really kind of began to be a lot more. And that was sort of our entry point into then becoming more organized and, setting up these canvases, communicating directly with the campaign themselves to strategize, and everything else that went on from there.
Wow. Well, thank you that's an incredible, it was an incredible addition to the campaign. And I think it has a lot of implications for socialist politics in the future. But Wilderness, can you tell us how because you've been a NYC-DSA member for a while, what motivated you to want to run Zohran, and what was that early experience like of kind of launching this campaign from your eyes?
Yeah, thank you. It's been a whirlwind, really, really exceeding, I think, a lot of people's hopes, and really been an opportunity to really expand what we think is doable and real. So it's been a fantastic experience overall. But like you were saying, I've been a Zohran field lead since day one, essentially, and I was a part of some of the initial whipping operations to get Zohran endorsed by DSA, and that was a really interesting conversation about a year ago now, actually, where we were talking about what is the opportunity, what is us meeting the moment in this time of rising, potentially impending fascism. We're talking about a year ago right now when Joe Biden was on stage with Donald Trump, and we all felt a sense of hopelessness. And we on the left were coalescing around how do we prevent that hopelessness from permeating our everyday lives and preventing us from moving forward. And so when we're thinking about how do we as socialists, how do we as DSA meet this moment, I think this conversation around Zohran, and Zohran presented this idea to us as a way to meet the moment, was we think back sometimes on elections and we think, oh, we should have been involved. Oh, that would have been great if there was actually a real progressive to shift the Overton window, to build those communities, those bases, to build that movement moving forward. And so there was a little bit of FOMO almost, actually, and I was trying to prevent that from occurring. And so I think we saw that this was an opportunity. There was a real hunger for an agenda that was focused on affordability, on meeting people where they were at, and a language that was accessible. And that was something that Zohran, who the initial question, I think, to the other guests here was, where did you first hear about Zohran? The first way that I and many other DSA members heard about Zohran was seeing Zohran in person, seeing this person in a suit just show up to a picket line, seeing someone come to present and help a nascent socialist candidate like Claire Valdez, who won an astounding victory on behalf of DSA and UAW. And so a lot of organizers within DSA, this was a really compelling message because we knew who Zohran was. We knew he was a cadre, rank and file organizer, and someone who is a great communicator who we thought could maybe meet this moment.
Yeah, I'm really struck by the idea of someone being kind of a tribune for the movement and running for like that executive position, even though kind of the logic had been for a while that was very persuasive to me within DSA is that, you know, we really got to focus on building like legislative blocks and city councils and state houses, and if we have an executive, they're going to be undermined, and we just got to, you know, be low to the ground and focusing on that. And then I kind of remembered the reason that, you know, I joined DSA, that thousands of people joined DSA, and the reason millions of people now have a positive association with socialism in America is for Bernie Sanders, who ran a presidential campaign. He didn't, you know, there wasn't just people running for city council throughout the country, although that's, you know, obviously important too. But on a strategic level, Wilderness, how did you address that argument that had been kind of, I think there was some defeatism to it as well. You know, you certainly talked me through it, but how did you experience that with your other comrades, convincing them that this is worth it, running a high publicity campaign?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of well-intentioned and well-grounded fears in the idea of, one, do we run a long shot campaign? Do we waste all these resources? Do we instill a sense of hope in people that's maybe unfounded? And, you know, burn them away, scare them away from building an actual movement in the future? And conversely, there's this fear of what happens if we win? How do we actually govern the largest city in America? How do we work with the NYPD? What do we do in that instance when we're no longer on the sidelines yelling about what can be done, but in the position to affect what will be done? And I think there's a sense of hope that I think underlines a lot of socialism, a sense of communal solidarity. And while we may not have had those answers at the time that this happened, there is a sense of why can't we actually pursue that? We were never ready for Bernie Sanders to win in 2016 or 2020. The left is way more developed now today, especially in New York City, if anywhere else in the United States, to handle that quagmire of a question. But we weren't ready for Bernie Sanders. We weren't ready for Cynthia Nixon. But that didn't stop us from hoping that we could change the narrative by running, that hoping we could actually win and wield those levels of power. And so I think when we looked at the chances of actual success, there was clearly a lane here. We're running against some of the most unpopular Democrats in the United States. We have the ability to impact with ranked choice voting. And even if we didn't win outright, the ability to organize South Asian, Muslim, young constituencies, bring them into the Democratic Party along our understanding of what the Democratic Party should be, would be invaluable even if we didn't win. So it was luckily there was a benefit to even if we didn't win, and we could focus a little bit on that. But as you said, that I think those questions actually still exist about how do we govern as socialists, and I'm sure we'll address those eventually.
Absolutely. And I'm excited to see what kind of role social media takes, what role his supporters take on with social media after he's, knock on wood, sworn in, Zohran. But I'm reminded this week there was the great TV journalist Bill Moyers passed away this week, and I always think about this interview he had with Ralph Nader from like 25 years ago, where he asked Nader, "How do you make progressive politics fun?" Because it seems like it's not clicking in the early 2000s. It wasn't really, you know, he had his campaign, and then after that, things kind of fizzled out. There wasn't a sense that this is like a cool, fun thing to do. And Nader is just like, well, what's not fun about universal health care? Like, he just didn't get it. But I guess I would put that question to the hot girls. How do you take what are sometimes like wonky issues and make them salient to bring in people who otherwise may not be interested?
Yeah, I think that our campaign worked really well because we ran it as a marketing campaign more than a political one. I work in marketing, and I've, spent a lot of my career building brands and getting people involved out to events. And so when we first started, it really did just start as a way to raise awareness and to raise money. And then it sort of became, how do we get people involved? How do we get people signed up to Canvas? And that was when we really started turning to events and community building. And I think that it did involve so many people because it was something that was fun and it was joyful. We had these events like, the Zohran Mamdani lookalike competition, which like on the surface seemed very silly and unserious and like not contributing to any major movement. But, at that event, it was the day before the voter registration deadline, and we had people there registering people to vote last minute. And so it's sort of like hiding those very strategic things within, these silly, fun things that anybody can come out to, regardless of if they're heavily involved in politics or not. And that really did feed a lot into also like our social media strategy. So having these silly skits that like, we're friends with a lot of comedians. So we would have them write up these skits and then like kind of slip in, his policies or why you shouldn't vote for Andrew Cuomo. And so I think a lot of it is sort of, when you give a dog medicine and you hide it in like a ball of food. It's like, it's figuring out how you take these very serious issues and these things that people should care about and giving it to them with a little bit of like a sugar pudding.
I think the consensus across the board is that Anders' boyfriend skit, who's too into Zohran, put him over the line, and undoubtable at this point.
I would agree.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know if there are a lot of undecided voters who saw that, and
there were exit polls. The exit polls said that the weird ginger guy who's obsessed with Zohran is.
I read he was actually on track to win by 20, and then it did the opposite. But I guess on that point, on the the hot girl ethos, for people who aren't tuned into this. There was no like you didn't have to get rated to show up and be a hot girl for Zohran. You didn't have to identify as a girl. There was certainly a lot of guys like me who I'm definitely guilty of like fishing for a compliment. Like, do I really count as a hot girl? I don't know if I should wear this pin.
You're a very pretty girl, Anders.
Thank you. But can you describe the hot girl ethos? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so I think that's a question that I usually jump at answering when they ask it, in articles or interviews. I'm just like, I mean, look at me, man. I'm a 28-year-old dude with a bushy beard, and I'll be the first one to say I'm a hot girl for Zohran. I think it's really about what is your attitude towards progressive politics, right? If you believe in something better for all of us, if you believe that we can make a change in this country, you are a hot girl for Zohran or for whatever movement you're going for, right? And I think at the end of the day, being part of something bigger than yourself is really what the movement's all about. Being able to reach across to people who might not have interacted, like you said, with this type of politics before, making it accessible to everyone, whether it's through our social media. There were many times that we had some men message us and they'd say, hey, I wanted to come out to a hot girls canvas, but would I be, taking up space in a place that I shouldn't be? Or is this allowed for me to come out to? Like, can I get a shirt? And we were like, yeah, of course. Like, this is not limited to if you actually are a girl or if you, how you look. We're not over here determining whether you're hot or not. And going at the thing that makes you hot is coming out here and doing things for the betterment of the cause, for the movement of the cause. And I think by the end of it, we had some hot boys shirts as well that we had released, and we had some extras that were produced. And I decided, hey, like maybe someone wants these. So I went up to a couple dudes and I said, hey, y'all want these hot boys shirts? And they were like, no, give us the original. Like, we want the hot girl shirts. It's just something to think about, like obviously the movement has become what it is, but it seems like it's not really limited to what you look like or who you are.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like, there were a lot of canvases that you guys organized. Did that kind of help you develop new skills as organizers, bringing people from online to meet space?
Definitely. I think that this was pretty much our first. I had a little bit of organizing experience when I was very young, like end of high school, beginning of college, for like the March for Our Lives, and so I was very limited on organizing experience in that sense. We've produced events before, but nothing where we're really like taking people, initiating them, and then putting them out onto the streets to knock on doors. So it was new for us, but it was something that we had put out the call for volunteers around the end of May, because what ultimately had ended up happening was we were attending all of the Hot Girls canvases ourselves, and we both worked 2 full-time jobs. So it was very much like, we had people DMing us like, hey, can you guys come to the Bronx on a Wednesday? And we were like, we can't, we just can't make that happen. So we put out a call to volunteers, and within 24 hours, we had 120 people sign up to volunteer with us.
Wow.
And so that was really sort of a wake up call to us of like, okay, whether or not we're ready, like we have to be, because we have all of these people who are now entrusting us with their time. We have to be organized about it. We have to be strategic. And so we started working pretty closely with the campaign as well to figure out where they needed the most people. So, they would send us to high need areas or areas that not a lot of people were signing up to canvases. And we would basically assign our canvas leads to go out to all of these different places. And I think by the end we were having like at least one a day, if not two a day. And, I think one of my bigger regrets of our operation is that we didn't call for volunteers sooner, because I feel like if we had started it earlier, we could have gotten a lot more canvases out of it. But I feel good going into the general now that we have sort of a system set up, and we're also restructuring our organization so that a lot of it will take. We basically, by the end of the primary, we were not sleeping, and so we're excited to dole out a little bit of responsibility to some of our other organizers within Hot Girls, so that we're able to be more effective overall.
Yeah, it definitely seems so. I was talking to somebody from the video team who's very quick to be like self-effacing and say that it wasn't the messaging, it was the ground game and the door knocking. And I think it was really both, right? The videos the Zohran campaign went a long way. The content you guys created, but obviously having a campaign that has, I don't know if there are any paid canvassers at all on the Zohran campaign, just all volunteers, that makes a huge difference. There was a lot of money Cuomo had at the very end that went into door knockers, but Wilderness, can you speak to the difference between how a money-powered ground operation is going to work versus a volunteer one?
Yeah, 100%. So ground field operations like the ones that you're associated with a lot of DSA campaigns, these are all volunteers who are actually really oftentimes passionate about what they're talking about. They know what they're talking about. They're enthusiastic. They look like they're having fun. And when you're talking to people at their doors, when you're bothering them on the weekend, if you have a positive demeanor, you're a lot more effective of a salesman than you are if you're someone who's being paid, say, by a different campaign. In this race, Andrew Cuomo didn't actually have his own field operation. He relied on Fix the City, a super PAC funded by MAGA billionaires and Trump donors, to fund and operate his field operation. And those individuals, they were there for a job. They were there for $25 an hour. They were there for quick work. Oftentimes, they did not love Andrew Cuomo themselves. They don't love the candidates they're there for. Oftentimes, you might also see members from a union who are there canvassing on behalf of a candidate. And I think it's very important to understand not all unions are democratic from a rank and file structure. Many of them require their members to attend X number of union sponsored events, which can be political rallies. And if they're not, they're docked. So that's why when you see pictures of all of these carpenters out for Cuomo back in the primary, a lot of them didn't look very excited to be there. And you would get people like them in their orange colored shirts, or you'd get Fix the City canvassers taking photos with Zohran themselves because they appreciate a politics that speaks to them. And I wanted to touch a little bit about like what makes this a mass politics sort of movement and that confluence between the mass media we're seeing here. And like Hot Girls for Zohran, that's super fun stuff. That created so much excitement and got so many people out. And even those people who didn't sign up for canvases directly with Hot Girls, who signed up through the campaign, they came onto a campaign staffed by DSA members who understood the importance of having fun, who understood the importance of what it means to create an institution, to create a large campaign apparatus where people keep coming back and volunteering. And when we looked at that, we built community amongst people who are struggling and looking for community, looking for a politics that speaks to them. We gave them ownership over their lives and the policies they create. And that's how we've been building power. And it's that power that fuels these grassroots door knocking campaigns, and which really a lot of people would call, quote, the DSA difference. So it's a really big difference between paid door knocking.
Right, and it's a big part of how Zohran went from 0% to winning, which it went by in a flash. Like it seems like not that long ago, it was, my best case scenario was that he would help Brad Lander get over the top, and that didn't pan out. I think because Brad Lander didn't have those two things. He didn't have an army of volunteers, and he also, frankly, just didn't have Riz and the kind of social media.
He had his own version of it. Dad Land.
We love Brad.
Yeah,
we love that Lander, and but also to your point about the door knocking differences, is DSA we have built up a really competitive, I would say almost futuristic understanding of what are the best practices. And from my understanding, the Lander campaign only did crowd canvassing. They didn't actually go around and door knock. They didn't create a universe of voters that they bugged 2, 3, 4 times to get them to the polls. And that's part of what has been so surprising is how Zohran surpassed Lander when everyone thought Lander would be the one who Zohran would help get over for Cuomo. And, that's an aspect of where that door knocking comes in.
Yeah, it was absolutely enormous. And it, again, Cuomo really had nothing. It was coasting on name recognition, but it seemed like for so long a foregone conclusion that he was going to run away with it. When was the moment for, I guess, everybody, I'll start with the hot girls, that you realized that we were going to win?
So I had been saying for probably 3 weeks before the primary. I would, every time I addressed our volunteers or anybody who I was speaking to about the campaign, I would say when we win. I stopped saying if we win, because it was something where I was on the ground. I was seeing how many people were knocking doors. I was seeing the volunteers that we got, how passionate they were, how there were people who were going out twice a day, to canvass. And these were people who had jobs, So I was just really seeing, I think I was very moved by how many volunteers were coming out, by the attitudes they had, the positivity, the enthusiasm, the community that was building, that it just became very, very apparent to me, like, this is something that's almost inevitable. It's like, I think when you have that many people who care that much about something compared to, obviously, as you spoke to Cuomo's campaign, there weren't people who were excited to go out and vote for Cuomo. I was talking to people for weeks leading up they were like, I'm so excited to cast my vote for Zohran. And I had a friend with a 16-year-old brother who had contacted me and had been like, can I canvass? Am I allowed to canvass? I'm only 16. It was like seeing the excitement. I just knew. I knew it was an inevitability. And so I think like even 3 weeks out, I was just really confident that he was going to go over the edge.
Yeah, I think 3 weeks out for me, there was a hot girls canvas, and every time we would do a hot girls canvas, I would know that the number would go up by like 3 or 4 fold. The amount that they had signed up versus after we announced the hot girls canvas, it just was a massive amount of people that showed up. But I remember I went to one, I think 2 weeks out from the election, and I think that we had maybe 30, 40 people out there. And they had to split up into 2 separate groups to give out the instructions because there were just too many people to crowd up in one area. And I remember they asked how many people had done a canvas before. And I think I saw the number of hands go up that was like 10 or 12. And the rest were all first-time canvassers. But even that first group of hands that went up, like 12 hands that are return canvassers, already was insane. But then when you looked at there's 28 people who are doing this for the very first time, and we still have 2 weeks left until the election, I knew that, this was a movement that was really just snowballing and getting bigger and bigger every single day. So kind of knew it was going to happen. I did not know that it would literally be the first night that we would figure it out. I thought, oh, I'm going to go to sleep. We're going to figure this out in 1 week, but hopefully the numbers are good and it'll probably end up being his win. And we can assume that the first night, but it was incredible. The youth turnout that pushed us over the edge.
And Wilderness, what about for you?
Yeah. So not to gamify it too much, but I think probably about a month ago, I had all these assumptions in my head when I was trying to whip DSA members like you to support voting to endorse Zohran. And there was all these like assumptions of like what would it would take for Zohran to win. And really it seemed those assumptions were just impendingly going to be checked off unless something really drastic changes. Like once it became clear that no one else had any juice other than Zohran relative to Cuomo, and we understood that the polls can't capture the grind. The polls can't capture increased voter turnout among South Asians and youth people. Once we realized that, like, hey, he's such a good messenger as long as he doesn't really fuck up on the debates, like, we're probably, with the way the momentum's going, we're going to be winning this. And it was almost surreal on election night to be getting the results back while I was hosting the watch party in Astoria and with 2,500 people. And so you're just like kind of looking once in a while over at your phone, and we're up, the minute results are coming in. And it was surreal in the sense that it was like, oh yeah, I guess we're winning. And like it wasn't as shockingly surprising once you had kind of seen like the magic that was being created on the ground, like especially with what the hot girls were doing. But just at any given canvas, you would see so many new faces. I've been doing this. This is my 16th campaign, and I generally know most of the people at a canvas launch. I was at canvas launches where I maybe knew one fresh face.
Wow.
And you're seeing people of all ages and demographics. You're like, is this the correct campaign? Like this isn't a bunch of 20 and 30-year-olds. It like once you start seeing that, I think the level of disbelief really faded away.
Can I give you my 2 cents as someone on the other side of the country that has nothing to do with this?
Sure.
So I kind of, I don't know exactly where exactly to put it. I definitely got the feeling like, oh shit, this guy's going to do it. Like at one point, and it, increased over the last month or so. Definitely like near the end there when he just started appearing with every insane celebrity you can think of online. I was like, oh, he doesn't care about the liability that any of these people are bringing. This guy's already won. Like he doesn't give a fuck. Him and our friend Sarah Squirm, who's on SNL, are just talking about weird fucking fucked up shit like she talks about. I'm like, this guy, I think he's got in the bag. Either that or he's making a wild PR decision, right? But like that was kind of a hint for me. But honestly, like my actual take here is like, because I'm on the other side of the country, because I'm seeing this all through media and stuff like that. Watching him appear on like talk shows and stuff like that, and do these public appearances and make these videos and stuff. Something occurred to me that I really like about his campaign. I really like about him and what he's done here, which is that there is this concept. Lenin talked about a little bit, I think, in What Is to Be Done. I can't remember which one it is. Oh, that's State and Revolution. But tailing versus leading. And politics in general, I think really people in bourgeois Western politics tend to default to the concept of tailing, which is like, doing political science and having graphs and going, what is the electorate and how do we give them what they want? What do they want? How do we pander to them? Which are the ones that show up and have already registered as voters and are the people, you hear this shit from the Democrats all the time. Like, well, we have to reach these like median people or whatever. So we have to do this. Obviously they're just justifying stuff they already want to do. But to some degree, that is like how people understand politics, and the big gray mass of non-voters, essentially people that just don't even participate in this, but live in the populace that you're trying to govern. They don't really come into play. Like they're just assumed to be inactive. And with Zohran, he would go and he would appear on these TV shows. He did this fucking thing on Colbert. I don't know how y'all feel about it. I personally was like, I'm a little bit like, I think Colbert hasn't aged very well as a millennial. He's, now that he's not a satirist, he's kind of just an establishment shill. He has obviously, some pretty basic establishment Democrat politics and stuff. But like whether it was like a planned thing or not, Zohran would answer these questions by like challenging the audience to even understand why that question was asked to begin with. And so that's the opposite of tailing, right? That's leading. He was creating like new paths for people to follow him down by answering these questions that way. And when he won in this huge upset, in retrospect, as an armchair quarterback here, I think the explanation seems to be like, with that in mind, he created the electorate. He didn't just fucking go, oh, how do I get this person who's a registered voter who lives at this place and votes in elections. This big majority that pushed him over was people that weren't going to be represented in the polls. They weren't sitting around answering their phone and going, I'm a voter. I'm going to vote this way or whatever. And that's good. That's like a lesson here, I think, in terms of the socialist project.
Yeah, and it's so rare to see any kind of politician be that good at interviews. Like he nails these Q&As in a way I haven't seen since Obama. And I don't like Obama. We don't like Obama. But it is just so rare to have, for whatever reason in this era, so many politicians are just terrible speakers because a lot of them just don't really believe anything anymore. It's true of both parties. And they even Bernie would stay on message. Never went off message. He couldn't really adjust to what the interviewer would throw at him, and Zohran's able to like play 5D chess with like every possible angle that the conversation could go in. But to your point, Jake, about this massive people, this in a way is kind of a sleeping giant of millions of people in America who have these politics and don't see them represented in most of our politicians, and often don't show up. A lot of people move to New York City and stay registered wherever they're from. And the moment I kind of knew who's going to win was last Sunday, seeing a lot of people like that, just in a line that wrapped around the block here in Bed-Stuy. But it did open up some questions for me about, obviously Zohran was elected with a coalition. He would not have won if it was just podcasters and baristas voting for him. But there is a big part of his base is made up of transplants, which again is not to say there weren't people who are long-term residents who are sympathetic to Zohran. I definitely canvassed some. But how do we navigate that tension of trying to welcome people who may be skeptical? Because I get it, there's your cost of living is going up in the city you've grown up in at the same time as like often annoying and weird people are moving to your city. Like it seems like a correlation there, but Wilderness, I guess, how do you sort of address that?
Yeah, it's interesting what the electorate is, and to an extent, we have to grapple with the fact that our comrade Michael Lang, a really fantastic political analysis person here in New York, he called this area that experiences immense gentrification, basically running onto the East River, east of Manhattan, the Commie Corridor. And it's a place with a lot of gentrifiers, with a lot of people who are, engaging in a level of displacement of these communities, while at the same time we're seeking to advance a politics that speaks to each and every New Yorker, working class, middle class, and, to some extent, anyone. And so it is a conundrum, but I think at the end of the day, the way we reconcile that is not by comparing voters against each other, but by understanding what brings them all together. And that is this understanding that we need a city that is more affordable. New York is a city of dreamers. It is a city of immigrants. Transplants are an inherent part of this city to some extent, and we all should be able to afford to live here. Whether or not the issue is with me or the landlord, I think we can make a more compelling argument that you should be upset with the landlords, with the real estate development companies, with Rebney, who are the ones creating these issues of gentrification, rather than maybe a socialist electorate who is more predisposed to voting for these policies.
Yeah, I'm curious how you guys feel about that as well.
I think one of the things that popped out, and it might have been in Michael's one of Michael's tweets as well, Wilderness, as you're alluding to, but it was that part of the voter block that makes more than $100,000 a year, right? Like high earners, or so they's called. I think he had a plus 13 or plus 14% over Cuomo, and people were like, "Oh well, why are all these people who are making a lot of money, these transplants that come in and just have these marketing or laptop jobs, like why are they voting for him?" And it's like, aren't you afraid that he's going to tax you next or something like that? And I think the answer to that is, no matter who you are or what you earn, you want this city to be cleaner, to be safer, to be well run, right? Like at the end of the day, the people who are willing to pay more taxes, they want that money to be going to a city that is better for them, that does provide a better quality of life. And I think that's what you saw with this electorate as well. And that's why I wasn't really too surprised with those numbers when those came out.
Yeah. I would say another thing is like a big part of Zohran's platform obviously is like freezing the rent, and a lot of rent stabilized tenants are longtime residents, their families, and you see these transplants who are going out canvassing, pushing that as a point, and it's like that's not something that's going to directly benefit them, but they understand the importance and how many people are being pushed out of the city because their rent is going up. And so I think it is like a coalition and understanding that this is mutually beneficial for everybody involved. And so, I think I've said this in a couple other interviews, but I think we're not in a position to turn people away from supporting the cause, regardless of their background or, anything else about them. It's if you're on the same page as us, if you have the same vision for New York, like you're welcome and we're happy to have you.
Yeah, and I think the project over the next 4 years is to prove to people who are skeptical that there is a place for them in this movement and in this administration. We did an episode on Fiorello LaGuardia a few weeks ago, and his coalition when he was elected in 1933 was quite similar. He had educated liberals, he had Italians who really wanted an Italian mayor, and a lot of the my family who was Irish and people like that were voting for the Tammany Hall candidate because that's who could, at least help them somewhat. They were skeptical of like a broader vision, and we have to show people that it can actually happen. Which brings me to how do we do that? How are you guys thinking of? Well, first of all, can we win in November? What are people's thoughts on the November election? Do we want Andrew Cuomo to run? Is it better if it's a face-off against Adams? Wilderness, how are you gaming out the next few months of this campaign?
Oh yeah, I think to the first question, the more the merrier. This is a city that has a very high prevalent bias towards whoever the Democrat is in the general election. And I think in this instance, it's vote blue no matter who, baby. We're going to use that against them. It's better if Cuomo runs. It's better if Adams runs. It's better if Silva continues to be in the race, right? One thing we don't want to repeat is what happened with India Walton up in Buffalo. Yeah. But unlike in that instance, we already have Democratic powerhouse brokers coming along and supporting Zohran. We already have the organized union labor, and we actually have a campaign staff that is still committed to that long game, to continuing to build out this coalition beyond just individuals who are registered Democrats. Most of the city are not registered Democrats. These are policies that, of course, we want to see Zohran win on, but we ran Zohran also to get these policies into the minds and the hearts of every New Yorker. So this is now our opportunity to expand beyond our more progressive, more liberal base that we fight these battles in, and to take these battlefields to new frontiers, to new voters, and to get them to be on board with the New York Health Act, to get them on board with rent freezes, with universal child care. That's what I think we are focused now on moving forward, is making sure that we get these messages out there and that we can hold all of the electeds accountable who are not named Zohran Mamdani and who are not SIOs, who we will have to work with, who will need to approve these policies. So we need to build that power and expand our base.
Yeah, I think a powerful element, hopefully, once he's mayor, is fear that the establishment has of challenges like this one or other. Just the fact that now there's this really what's coming together as a coherent base of people who are actually going to expect things from their political leaders. What do you guys think about canvassing for the next few months? Are you? It seems like now everybody's catching up on sleep, trying to pay off the sleep debt. But will there be more Hot Girls for Zohran canvases in the coming months?
Yeah, 100%. We're currently waiting to hear from the campaign themselves. Moving forward, what their plan is. We're really excited to reach out to new areas that previously weren't canvassed. We got so many requests from a lot of people who are like, I've never seen canvases in my area. And towards the end, we would reach out to the campaign and tell them there's people here who want to canvass, but there's no canvases. And it really just came down to, they didn't have the bandwidth to do it at that time. There were so many canvases going on. It was so much. Yeah. And so I think that now that we have so much more time before their general, they'll really be able to expand into those areas that we weren't able to reach before, which I think will make a huge difference. We're excited to keep the Hot Girls canvases going. We have a lot of plans for both community organizing events and, we're figuring out our canvassing schedule and how to expand. That's part of the restructuring is being able to get way more canvases in way more areas and just make it accessible to everybody, as well as, adding in some phone banks.
Yeah. Well, that's super important, the communities that haven't been reached yet, because, as Wilderness is kind of alluding to, those are people who we can hopefully activate when Zohran's mayor. And we've touched on this a little bit, but as an organizer, Wilderness, what are some things you've envisioned already, perhaps, that Zohran can do as an organizer-in-chief from Gracie Mansion?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the perennial issues that we have been running here in New York City DSA is a tax the rich campaign. And we understand the need for a better society requires some funding. And I think we also understand in this heightened moment of sensitivity and fear around the Trump administration threatening to pull federal funding from New York is that we need to be able to take that bludgeon, to take that chip off of the playing table and say, you can threaten that, but we will not cower to that, that we can stay strong and we can continue to provide a New York that everyone deserves. And that will require for us to have our own funding streams. If we have to really get into a battle with the Trump administration and if funding for programs is being threatened, we have to be able to do that. And in order to do that, we have to tax the rich. And we're seeing it more and more now, more popular than ever. It's been a solid aspect of this campaign. No one has shied away from that being the answer on how we fund anything. And so I think that is probably the thing I am most excited about. But what I'm also excited about is now the mayor's office, the second largest bully pulpit in the United States of America. Zohran is now a household name. He's providing energy to a stagnant Democratic Party that is stuck in the ways of the past. And this is going to inspire so many people across the country and across the city, across the state, to take up a sense of ownership over our politics. And that is something that I think Zohran's mere presence and his victory is capable and already doing.
Yeah, that kind of brings it full circle to something I'm thinking about, which is people in other cities who have, Minneapolis has a socialist candidate, Omar Fatah, who's challenging Jacob Fry for mayor. It's backed by DSA. Comrades out there, or really any other city where there's a demand for this kind of politics. What's your advice, Hot Girls, for people who want to get involved and help that campaign digitally or otherwise?
Yeah, we actually have had some plans to expand Hot Girls outside of New York into Caif earlier today was sending me about the Minneapolis race. But we're in contact, with organizers from other cities. We're working on putting together some resources for how you can both start it from like a social media standpoint and then expand it outward to actually getting people on the ground. So we're putting some stuff together and communicating with organizers across to try to get that. It's really about finding the right people in each city that, have the time, the dedication to make it happen.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about grassroots movements like this is that there's people like us in every city across the U.S. So it's really about finding those people, giving them the tools and resources they need, and then letting them run with it on their own time. And we're excited to see, what we were able to do with Zohran's campaign here reproduce itself across the nation.
There are hot girls in your area, believe it or not.
There are always hot girls in your area.
That's a great billboard. We should start putting that up everywhere.
It's really funny. Like the day after he won, I had my uncle is an organizer in Brooklyn, and he has been for like 20 years. So a lot of my organizing comes from his wisdom and being around him growing up. All of his reading materials. But he had a friend who's an organizer in Germany, and she came the day after, and he had told her a little bit about Hot Girls, and she sat down with me and was talking to me about how to use our strategies for the German leftist party, which I thought was so funny. She was like, everything on my feed right now is about Zohran. So it was like, even in Germany and my friend who's in London, they're all looking at what's happening in New York City and being like, how can we make this happen where we are? And so I think it's really powerful what he's doing. It sets a precedent that it's not impossible to topple these dynasties. It's just about having the people power and putting in the work to make it happen.
Yeah, like globally, the people crave people-powered movements and things like this. Like I think over the last week, we've gotten probably 10 or so DMs from Italy, Poland, the Netherlands, Australia, saying, hey, I'd love a t-shirt and to have a memento of this movement. And I'm like, what? You guys have been tuned in from these countries? Like, it's insane.
Well, I'm real quick. I'm curious too. Have you gotten any messages from people who are like, Pete Buttigieg or like centrist campaigns who want to try and replicate it for a different type of politics?
No,
not yet. But
Wow,
I'm sure they will come knocking, right?
I don't know. Democrats are like 15 years late to everything, so we'll hear from them in 2035.
But I think our goal, right, is we're going to offer this playbook for free to everyone who is a candidate that resonates with us and reflects our values. If there is a candidate that's a little more centrist that wants to try and recreate this, we'll definitely be charging them a little political consulting, which will go back into our organizing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice. And go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if there is anybody listening who wants to replicate it, feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah.
We're happy to give you the resources.
Let's stand up some good progressive leadership.
Hell yeah. And lastly, Wilderness, same question to you. What do you say to other people in cities throughout America who want to do this same thing?
I would tell them to join DSA. I would show them. I would tell them how heartfelt it is to see the fellow organizers I've been building a better world with here in New York City over the last few years really contribute to something so meaningful as this campaign, and to see them being able to empower their neighbors, their communities, to understand that a better world is not just possible, but something that we can tangibly win by fighting together collectively for it. There's DSA chapters in cities across the country. There are, sister organizations in other parts of the world. I would encourage them to try to join a union if that's in their workplace, if they can do that. Shout out UAW. And otherwise, stay positive. Just try to be happy if you can. It's a lot harder to organize when everyone's sad. So, try to be happy that we're all doing this together.
Yeah, well, I'm very happy you all joined us on the show. Yes, join DSA. Check out Hot Girls Resort. There was a little bit ago where I looked up the Instagram page and it was like, "You're a pervert. Why are you looking for hot girls?"
Yeah,
but that's sorted.
It's not sorted. Instagram has a shadow ban, but
damn.
If you use the number 4, it fixes it. But...
Hot Girls, the number 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good info to have. We'll link that in description. And then quick plug, paid protest, NYC-DSA monthly comedy fundraiser. It's going to be raising money to send people to convention on July 11th. We got a lot of great comics on the show. Myself, Freddie G, or actually I may not be there, but Freddie G and Sharif Hassan will be there. Gracie Kanan, John F. O'Donnell, Sidney Duncan, Calvin Gato, and Nato Green. That's July 11th, 7:30 at Silo. Jake, anything to plug?
Well, you have Cato and NATO. That's wild.
Right.
I have a show to plug. I haven't quite cooked it up yet. I have a date. So if you follow me online and you happen to see this scrape
Soft
I got
launch.
into with this weird right-wing troll account, Twitter, like a weird fake news, not fake news, but like a fake news account, a Nazi tried to dox me and I doxed him back. And it was really funny. I found a bunch of posts that he put on Facebook about trying to resurrect his hairline. He runs a horrible account that was trying to dox me for helping out with some of the ICE protests here. And it's very funny. And the end result of it is that the best fucking alt comedy venue in town, in my opinion, the Lyric Hyperion, hit me up and they said, "Hey, do a show here, do a fundraiser, keep this thing going." And I was like, hell yeah. So I'm still booking it. I think I got James Adomian, friend of ours, we had on the show a long time ago. Fucking one of the funniest comics ever. Some good friends. It's going to be at the Lyric Hyperion on July 25th. That's a Saturday night at 9:30. So if you're in LA, I'm going to be juicing this a lot because I want to throw a big show and raise some money for the ICE resistance out here. So the name of the show is pending. I think it's going to be called Laugh Block and it's going to be all Antifa shit, but that's tentative. Come to my show.
All right. Yes. Keep a lookout. All right. Well, thank you guys again. Have a wonderful night. It's finished. Thanks for everyone for listening.
It's finished.
Everyone.
Thank you.